All right, we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the third session of today, where we're going to be exploring the theme of how to build a business as a spiritual healer. Hi, everyone. Yeah, send me a shout out in the comments so that I see you're here. Hello. Yeah. Also, let me just fix my screen so that, yes. Hi, everyone. So great to be here with you on what on my end is such a bright Sunday afternoon, and it's such a joy, an honor, and such a privilege to be here with you today, and especially leading this conversation on building a business as a spiritual healer. First, I think I'd just like to, just send out gratitude to my co-curators and to our curator in lead, Joy. I think what we have created here for ourselves this weekend is an absolutely powerful platform, for the genetic pathcutters of our generation. And that is indicate, we saw that yesterday when we just broke the internet, right? I think it just goes to show how powerful this space is that we have created. Imagine being alive in 2021 and being present in a community, in a circle, a huge circle of healers, of medicine women, of shamans, of oracles, of priestesses. This is a pivotal moment and something that we should definitely celebrate, yeah? So in the next coming 45 minutes to 50 minutes, we're going to be engaged in conversation of building a business as a spiritual healer. My name is Tumelo Moreri, and I am a womb medicine woman based in Botswana. And essentially what that means is that I help mostly women leaders heal their inner womb wounds and also their inner leadership pains so that they may get to experience joy, bliss, pleasure, confidence, and freedom in their bodies, in their leadership, and in their lives. Because, hey, we deserve it, hey? Yeah, and I think we could just start off by addressing the elephant in the room, right? Which is the business by this spiritual healer, right? So if for you it might be unsettling, or if it might bring with it like a sense of discomfort to have to think about starting a business or building a business as somebody who's spiritually gifted, then that for me is really an invitation for us to begin to deeply interrogate and do some inner healing work really around what we believe or what we hold true about the value of healing work and also about the value of our spiritual gifts, right? And so in our chat today, we're definitely going to be talking a lot about the healing that we are being invited to as the spiritually gifted and as healer practitioners, right? So this conversation is really for you, the healer practitioner. It is for you who is aspiring to begin to step into healing practice, to begin to offer your gifts, your medicine to people, right? And beginning to step into a place where you will be compensated for that work, right? And in our chat, you can expect that we're going to talk about the phenomenon of the wounded healer, right? And what that means for you as a spiritually gifted individual. And, like kind of like the invitations and the responsibilities around that, right? We're also going to be chatting about the phenomenon of magical thinking, right? And how that might manifest for you as somebody who's spiritually gifted, and also the invitations and responsibilities around that, yeah? And fourth, we're also going to be chatting about how to step into leadership in your space holding, in your healing practice, right? We'll break that down as we get to it. And lastly, I'd love for us to chat about, like the opportunities around working with your body and working with your womb, right? In your healing practice and as you build your business, right? And the opportunities for us there and for our world, right? So if you have any questions, please specifically drop them in the Q&A box, right? There's a tab, I think it's chat, then raise your hand and then Q&A. If you have any questions specifically, drop them in the Q&A, because I think there's going to be a lot happening in the chat box, right? So that I can, see those questions, right? So having really addressed this idea, or the potential really for us as the spiritually gifted to build businesses around our spiritual gifts, that kind of also invites us to deeply interrogate, or to gain some understanding around what it means to be a healer, especially during this time in the history of our planet, right? And also to interrogate and to explore the opportunities and the invitations around ensuring that we can be of service in the world in a sustainable manner, right? So this is where the container of a business comes in, because a business is really just a container. That which you might call a healing practice, it's a container for your spiritual gifts, right? Which will ensure that you are supported, and which will ensure that you can offer this work in a sustainable manner, right, over a longer period of time, and also reaching a wider breadth of people, right? Essentially serving a wider breadth of people, right? Yes, and so now speaking to this phenomenon of the wounded healer, right? Here's something that I would like to invite us to think about, Just because you're spiritually gifted does not mean that your wounding, like your human woundings, your ancestral woundings, and your cosmic woundings begin to evaporate, right? So just because you have those spiritual gifts does not mean that you still have your own inner woundings living within you, living within your ancestral lineages, and living within your cosmic lineages, right? And so for us specifically, as people who are holding or aspiring to hold healing space for people, we're especially called to heal ourselves so that we may begin to hold safe, clean, and clear healing space for the clients that step into our healing spaces, right? And this is so that there isn't any interference in the transmission of our medicine, and in the transmission of the medicine of those who step into our healing spaces, right? So this interference, it would essentially be interference by our own inner wounding, our own inner traumas, and our own inner miasma, right? So it lives within you. It lives in the energetic vibration, in the energetic frequency of who you are, right? And when left unattended, and like this speaks to the invitation and the responsibility for us as spiritual practitioners to step into our work with and in integrity, right? So when you're stepping into that healing space with the potential of your own inner wounding and miasma and pathologies to unconsciously step into or come into your healing space, that kind of erodes the quality. It takes away the level of, or the quality of integrity of our healing spaces, right? And the interferences that I was talking about that would be as a result of our unattended to inner woundings, inner pathologies, our own miasma, could be in the form of projections, right? They could be in the form of bias, and just us not being able to hold safe space for our clients, right? So just as an example, right? Say you are, I think what I'd like for us to really consider is the fact and the lived experience that we are human, right? So there is the saying amongst us as spiritual people that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, right? And for me, the invitation there is to hold like this reality, like we're spirit in having a human experience, right? So the human is still very much alive and something that we must become alive to, we must stay alive to, even as we are practicing healers, right? And so we need to be alive, like just cognizant of the fact that even though we might be spirit, even though we might be spiritually gifted, there is this very active element of us being human, right? And susceptible to human trappings, right? And so another thing really which speaks to integrity is if we are going to be practicing our work and inviting people to do inner healing work, right? It'll actually be out of integrity for us not to be doing the healing work ourselves, right? So the invitation for us during this time, especially during these unprecedented times in our world, is to begin to talk our walk, or rather to walk our talk, right? We have to be doing that inner healing work ourselves that we are recommending to people and that we are inviting people into, right? So I think one of the things that you might agree with me that usually tick us off about most of the leaders in our world, who are mostly political leaders, is that they tend to say things that they themselves don't do, right? And so I find that as the new earth leaders, because that's who we are the new earth leaders, we're being called to and we're being invited to walk our talk, right? So if we are healers and if we're going to be inviting people to do inner healing work, right, we ourselves need to be doing our own inner healing work, right? Remembering that we are human, we too carry inner woundings, we too carry great pain, and more so because we are genetic path cutters, right? So our world right now exists within a matrix, right? With very specific programmings and very specific conditionings that are wired quite intentionally, deliberately, to make it very difficult for genetic path cutters to step into their mission work, right? And you will find that quite often it is the genetic path cutter, it is the one who is spiritually gifted, who will have to move through so much of that inner wounding, right? Before they can rise and step into the manifestation of the spiritual gifts, the manifestation of the inner medicine, and before they can step into the soul mission, right? So yeah, and by healing work, I think maybe we need to kind of agree on what we mean by healing work, just for the context, yeah, for the purpose of this conversation, right? So maybe at the initial, when you step into like spirituality, you would have encountered, you know, like meditations, the burning of sage, mantras, crystals, all the jab, right? So when we're talking inner healing work in this specific conversation, that is not what I'm referring to, right? So what I mean by inner healing work, I'm referring to you actually hiring someone to hold inner healing space for you, right? To hold space for you to heal whatever it is you might be needing to heal, right? It could be issues with your money. It could be issues with your womb. It could be issues with your body. It could be that you need to heal your ancestral miasma, that you need to do ancestral healing work, right? So that's what I mean, like hiring a healer to hold space for you, to move through your inner wounding, to move through your pain, to feel and move through your pain, right? And because also there's such a sweetness to space holding when you've actually moved through your own pain. There's such a rare, it's such a beautiful experience to hold space for someone to move through their own inner pain and woundings when you yourself have also had the experience of moving through your own inner pain and inner woundings, right? It goes beyond, oh, I feel you. Like you actually get, right? You get the intensity and the sacredness and the gift, the rare gift that is this work, right? So what I've been finding as I've been, like building. So I've been building my own spiritual business for the past 2.5 years now, right? And so, yeah, when the opportunity came for us to co-curate the summit, I knew that like one thing that was like super alive for me, a conversation that I know we need to get into as the leaders of the new earth, is this phenomenon of the wounded healer, right? And this very obvious in like it's it's almost really there on our faces because we are sitting with a lot of inner wounding. We know it, right? And the biggest invitation of our times, the biggest invitation of our gifts is to commit to our own inner healing, right? So that we may begin to hold safe, clear, and clean healing space for our clients so that we don't re-traumatize people when they step into our healing spaces, right? Cool. Let me know. Does that resonate for you? And yeah, where are you at in your own inner healing journey? Where are you at in you building your own business as a spiritual healer? Where are you at in you building your own healing practice, right? Let's please share, right? So that we may encourage others maybe who are also aspiring to step into this work, right? As healer practitioners, yeah? And another thing that I have been moving through actually myself personally, right? And that I see as a huge trapping for us as the spiritually gifted, as healer practitioners, is this phenomenon of magical thinking, right? This idea that, just because we're spiritually gifted or just because we have said yes to the calling, either God or the ancestors will come and do all the work for us, right? That they will come get us the clients, that they will come ensure that the money is flowing, that they will ensure that people know about our work. I call that magical thinking, right? And so what I've been finding, because I too have fallen into this trapping, right? And by mentioning all of these, right, we're not out here trying to shame ourselves or to shame anybody, right? What we are inviting ourselves into and each other into is to bring a level of presence, right? A level of awareness into how we have been moving through our spiritual gifts and the creation and the building of our healing practices, right? To look at what hasn't been working and what could potentially work for us and for the rest of the world, right? And so with this phenomenon of magical thinking, I've been finding that like a huge invitation for us is to bring all of ourselves into our healing practices and into our spiritual businesses, right? And by that, I mean considering and incorporating and integrating the spiritual. So what we mostly do and what I did, right, is to think, oh my God, just because I'm sitting here doing my meditations, my Zen vibes, the clients will come, people will know about my work, right? That's the spiritual element. There are actually three more, right? There is the psychological element, there's the mental element, which relates to your own intelligence, right? And there's the physical element, right? And also another thing to consider, we might be spiritual beings, we might be spiritually gifted, right? But we're currently existing in a three-dimensional world, right? Which has its specific rules for how businesses work, right? It also has its own like unseen rules of how people will get to hear about your work, of how people can actually sign up for your work, all right? So if I bet the ancestors wish they could just drop money into our accounts, right? But that's not how it works, right? And so what we're being invited into, once you've discovered you have the spiritual calling, once you have, moved through your own initiations, right? Is to identify, the forgotten parts of yourself that you might have left at the door and that you have not been inviting into and incorporating and integrating into your business, right? And one thing that I've noticed about like the spiritually gifted is that we also tend to be like highly intellectually gifted, right? So I, for one, I grew up as like a top student, like straight A student vibes, right? But what was interesting was that like the further, the deeper I went into my own spiritual path, and especially as I stepped into, building my own spiritual business, I thought like there was this very funny idea that I should leave like my intelligence at the door, I should just do my Zen and wait for the answers to do stuff, right? I grew up when I was in junior high school, like almost every week, I was on assembly addressing the students, right? So public speaking was my thing. I also really happened to be really good at writing and I really enjoy writing. But fortunately, that has always been active as I was building my spiritual business, right? I'm mentioning that to say, usually we leave, like our talents, our skills. I studied actuarial science and mathematical statistics, right? And that would, somebody who does that has got to have like brilliant brains, right? But however, we often fall into the trapping that, no, just because, it's a spiritual business, I shouldn't, engage the mind too much. Then why did God give you the mind? Like, why did your ancestors gift you your intelligence? Why did they gift you the gift of writing? Why did they gift you the gift of public speaking, right? And why did they gift you like your hidden passions, your hidden flames of tech, of entrepreneurship, right? Why did they gift you the ability to build your own website, to set up your own podcast, right? Why did they gift you with this gift of being a networker, of being able to bring people together? Your guys, you still get to bring those into your spiritual business and grow it, right? However, what I find like probably missing for a lot of us, and it was missing for me too, is an arrival at a choice point where we get to consciously choose that I want to do this, right? So yesterday, Nonofine challenged us. She asked us, are you choosing? Where are you at? Have you made a decision? Have you made a choice that you actually want to build a business, right? And so what I find is that because we become born with this gift, right? And so a lot of us might get stuck in the idea that I've been forced into this by the ancestors, I've been forced into this by God, so they should make it happen, right? And so what I find to be like a huge part of the invitation for us is to make like a very conscious choice. Is this something you want to do? If you're going to build a business, have a conversation with yourself. Are you choosing to build a business? And are you committing to do whatever it takes, right? With the support of your guides, with the support of your Christed ancestors, right? With the support of the true living source God, yeah? And with the support of your beautiful intellect, yeah? Yes. Let me know if that resonates and if you have any questions, right? And another invitation for us as New Earth leaders who are also, kind of like the front runners in in birthing New Earth businesses, right? Is for us to step into our leadership in terms of how we hold space for our clients, right? And it is also an invitation for us really to step into our leadership, right? So we're going to chat about space holding for a bit. Yeah. So by space holding, I mean essentially what happens in a healing session, right? When somebody steps into, private healing session with you, essentially what happens there, right? And another thing that I'd like for us to think about is that, just because we are spiritually gifted does not mean we know how to hold space for someone to heal. Yeah. Just because you have initiated does not mean you know how to hold space for someone to move through their own inner healing. And it doesn't mean we actually know how to hold safe and trauma-free healing space, right? And by trauma-free, I mean free from your own trauma and free from the potential to traumatize your client, right? And so the invitation here is, again, like it goes back to the conscious choice, right? Are you choosing to be the best that you can be as a healer, right? And are you also choosing to incorporate all that the true living source God has given you and has availed to you? The true living source God has availed to us, people who can train us in how to hold space better, people who can train us in how we can hold safe space, right? And so a huge part of the invitation is for us to choose first, and then to invest in becoming the best space holders that we can be. So another thing, earlier I mentioned that what I find is required is for us to arrive at an understanding of why we are even healers in the first place, right? So for me in my journey, I tend to ask a lot of whys, right? Like, so when I learned I'm a healer, I asked, but why? Why am I a healer? How did that even happen? What is the science behind that? Like, girl, break it down for me, right? And so it began to land for me. It is not by accident that you are a healer. You have literally been commissioned by the true living source God to come heal, to come hold space for humanity to heal, to come facilitate the healing of our world, of our planet, to come aid in the ascension of our Mother Earth. So yours is a huge and sacred mission, right? And so when we speak of holding trauma-free and safe space, you know, it's in alignment with this mission of ensuring that as humanity we elevate, right? So we don't want to be holding space in such a way that like it's 2 steps forward and 1 back, you know, because we didn't do our own inner healing work and we didn't invest in learning, because it's something we need to learn, right? Not all of us here, you know, we start off knowing how to hold space, but you learn. And through that learning process, you know, you're holding yourself in compassion. Even as you're listening to me now, I ask that let's hold ourselves in compassion, right? For what we didn't know and what we now know. And we begin making new decisions and doing things differently, right? For how we make manifest our spiritual gifts in the world and for how we facilitate healing for those who step into our healing practices, right? And, you know, space holding also speaks to like incorporating these 4 elements into how we aid healing for those who come to us, right? So it's the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, the somatic, right? Often we only want to rely on the we only want to lean onto the spiritual, right? However, your client has an emotional body, right? When you sit there as a shaman who has just received, you know, a message from the ancestors and you deliver it to your client, are you also ensuring that your client, or that you're holding space for your client to mentally process what you've just handed to them? Are you also holding space for your client to emotionally process what they have just discovered in a session with you, right? And holding space for them to move through those emotions, to make sense of the emotions, and to receive the guidance and the feedback from those emotions, right? Are we holding space for our clients to move through the physical aspects and the psychological aspects of the inner healing work that they're doing with us, right? Because it goes beyond just receiving a message from the guides, right? What if I receive that message and it completely collapses me because I don't know how to make sense of it? Or that I get so overwhelmed emotionally and it collapses me, right? So we're being invited to take all of those elements into consideration and to ask, how can I become the best space holder that I can be, right? So we've worked with an example there, right? Where you maybe as a shaman or an oracle, you receive a message from the luminous ones, right? And you drop it as it is, right? What we're being invited into is to learn, almost like train ourselves, learn how to make it digestible and safe and trauma-free, such that it doesn't induce any trauma for our clients, right? Yes. And another element, in space holding, because, often, what might often happen is that you discover you have a spiritual gift, you have a spiritual calling, right? And baba, boom, now you're supposed to hold healing space for people. Like, where do you even begin, right? In a healing, like speaking specifically when somebody is sitting there with you in a healing session. By space holding, we mean, like, where do you even begin when you start a session with someone? And how do you move them through the inner healing work, right? And what is the structure of your healing session? What are the ebbs and flow of your healing session? And how do you move your client through that ebb and flow of energy, right? So a healing session often starts here and then it goes in intensity, right? So how do we ensure that we hold space for our client, we support our client to actually have a soft and full and complete landing, right? So the invitation here in holding safe space is to not leave our clients here in an internal landmine, right? Where internally they're still in a major trigger, where they're not feeling complete, in terms of the work you've just done in a session, right? So yeah, like for me, that is one of the huge invitations, something that as New Earth leaders, we're being invited to invest in, right? To learn how to hold space in ways that are safe for the human beings that step into our healing spaces, right? In ways that are holistic, right? Appreciating all the elements of the human being that is in front of us and of this human being who's the vessel for the healing work, right? Yeah. And for me, like, this also speaks to the integrity, like just the integrity of our healing space, right? How do we ensure that our own trauma does not seep into our healing sessions, right? That requires that you do the inner healing work of your life, of your body, of your soul, of your psyche, right? To ensure that your own trauma doesn't, unconsciously come into the session. And also the integrity there is knowing that the session is not about you, right? Often when we have not dealt with our own inner woundings, we make the client session about you, like to come, um, exhibit my powers, to come share my opinions about what I think, An example, say, for example, you're probably sitting with inner wounding around intimacy, around romantic relationships, around men, as a woman, which might actually also run in your lineage, right? So a potential event is your client comes into a session and they tell you, my boyfriend didn't call, and I'm in such a state of distress, right? That inner wounding of yours might unconsciously drop into the session, and you're here telling your client, your men are useless, you don't need him, you're independent. You actually, girl, you got your money, get away from that man. Do you see how that is a projection? It is a projection in the sense that it is your own inner wounding now coming into the session, Like for me, like I find that the gift for me was to have started as a coach. I started my work in the coaching space, like got some training there and experience there, right? Which afforded me the opportunity to learn how to hold space for people and to remove myself, the girl, like the human self, the girl self, who has her own issues, you know, and to be able to make it about the client. I'm still learning, right? Like, yeah, it's probably like a lifelong journey. We learn every day, right? And so for me, this is an opportunity for us to interrogate ourselves to see where we're at. How might we be projecting in our sessions? How might we be, in what ways might we not be holding safe space for our clients? And where could we commit to become the masters of our work, right? Yeah. And another element there was, is just in terms of investing in our development as leaders, right? And I think, this kind of requires for us to first arrive at the realization that we are leaders. Yeah. I have, towards the end, I'll share where else you can find my work, but I have a podcast, and one of the podcast episodes there is on healing as a path of leadership, right? And, as healers and also as people who are doing the inner healing work of our lives, we're literally holding the ground for the new codes to be anchored in our world, right? So the new realities, the realities that we have been desiring, the ways of life that we have been desiring for our world, they're going to be anchored through us doing our inner healing work, right? And as a healer, as somebody who's spiritually gifted, you're literally holding space for that inner healing work to happen, for those codes to drop into our earth, to drop into our world, and for our new earth to emerge, right? Lastly, let's please talk about your body and your womb, right? And here we're talking about your womb as a creation portal. Because here's the thing, when we're talking about building a business, we're essentially talking about you creating a business, right? And so this takes us back now to the responsibility for us to heal our own inner woundings and our own inner traumas, right? To ensure that whatever it is that we are creating does not hold within its fabric that inner wounding and that inner trauma, right? We're literally the front runners, the ground crew in building new earth businesses, right? And we're going to do that by healing our own inner woundings and healing our own inner traumas. Somebody yesterday asked, so what is the importance of healing our wounds, right? One of the key things, one of the key whys in terms of healing our wombs, right, is to ensure that they are clear, clean, and safe creation portals and creation spaces for our businesses, for our healing spaces, for our very lives. Because our businesses, our healing practices are born through our wombs, right? And what I find to also be an invitation for us is to begin to work with, in partnership with our bodies, in partnership with our wombs, surrender, lean into that inner guidance, lean into the sacred rhythms, lean into the wise patterns in resurrecting the feminine essence, the Holy Mother in our businesses, in our workplaces, and in our world. So a huge part of the medicine in us resurrecting the Holy Mother in our world, in our work, in our businesses, is for us to work with our bodies, to work with our wombs, to heal our bodies, to heal our relationship with our bodies, to heal our relationships with our wombs. so that we may begin to connect to the wisdom that lives within our bodies and within our wombs, such that we may begin to ascend and to let go and to release, these patriarchal and capitalist ways of doing business and work, which have actually been deeply wounding for the body and for the womb, right? There's much to talk about. I'm going to check out your questions now. And if there are any others, please drop them in the Q&A box for me. Yeah, thank you. And also let me know what has shifted for you. What are you walking away with from the session? Yes, a question: how do we balance the call to serve and give our medicine with what you are calling us to be in a constant healing work? I mean, getting the balance of being ready to start healing other people with this phenomenon of having completed yourself as a healer. I don't know how I'm making sense. I'm going to say out what I hear you say, right? And confirm So I think what I also wanted to mention earlier, when we're exploring the phenomenon of the wounded healer and the need, like the necessity for us to heal, is for us to also be alive to the fact that healing work is rarely ever complete, right? So what I would say is that, like, the commitment that is required, that might be required for now, is just for you to commit to your own inner healing and to continue doing that inner healing work, right? And in terms of like, how do we balance, like, part of what I also hear you saying, Akana, is possibly that, how do I balance me being a healer practitioner and me doing my own inner healing work, right? And I'm finding that the invitation is for us we're going to do both at the same time, right? So quite practically, in a week, you have days on when you have like client sessions, right? And there also needs to be days there in your 7-day week where you are meeting with your own healer and doing your own inner healing work, right? I think what dropped for me towards the end of last year is that because I'm a healer, I will almost always be doing inner healing work, right? Because I'm holding space for people to do inner healing work, I need to be at all times clearing my own inner woundings and clearing my own inner traumas, right? Yes. So yeah, we can never completely be ready, really, right? So if it is time for you now to start holding inner healing space for people, you start doing that work and you also commit to doing your own inner healing work. Yeah. I hope I have answered that. Akana, let me know if there might be anything else I could address, right? Another question is, how do you measure or how can you tell if what you know is a safe lending is actually the safe, soft lending for your client, right? Great question. So another thing that I think we need to learn is what I sometimes call like trauma-free language, right? So it's, like the language of how to check in with your client, right? To ask, are you feeling complete? Does that feel complete for you? How are you feeling now? And also kind of like holding space for them to drop into their own bodies to get a sense of how they're feeling. Do they feel like they have landed? Like this is you now nearing the end of the session, right? You drop into her body. How are you feeling now? Right? And also us like being like present enough within our sessions because we are intuitive beings, right? Also, sometimes you can feel when your client is still hanging, when it's still very painful for them, when they haven't fully landed, right? So yeah, I think like just a key aspect of that is like learning the language, right? Of like just how to check in with your client, and also maybe possibly learning how to help them to drop into their own bodies to check if they're feeling like they've landed, or around whether they're feeling complete, right? Yeah, like the client is usually kind of like the best feedback um entity, you know, that you will have in a session. Yeah. Yeah, another question is, how important is healing our masculine wounds in womb work? Yeah. So womb work is womb healing, womb medicine, womb work. Like it's quite vast, right? So in terms of the masculine wounds, and we could speak like of the father wound, right? That for me, like it's usually active when we're speaking of like intimacy, right? And this is actually a deep wounding for a lot of genetic path cutters, right? Like intimacy work, intimacy healing, essentially mjolo, you know, us and our beloveds, boyfriends, you know, stuff, right? Um, Tons of masculine inner healing work is needed there. Father wound healing, right? Because it often seeps into, yeah, how we show up in intimacy. It often seeps into how we experience and express our sexuality as women, you know? Um, and like it's also really there in how we relate with our bodies, kind of like the choices we make around our bodies, which might often be related to like our father figures and the masculine in the world. Another key thing, a lot of women, and especially genetic path cutters, don't feel safe in female bodies, you know, because of our hyper masculine, you know, society, the way it's wired right now. A lot of us don't feel safe in the world. We're walking around feeling like, what if a male somebody does something to me, you know? Some of that, like inner trauma, some of that, like it's very subtle trauma. It gets held within your womb, right? And it can manifest in all sorts of like menstrual pain, pains and menstrual issues, right? Um, yeah, abdominal pains, you know, often what manifests as like womb pain, as physical womb pain, has a much underlying source, you know, that is often like emotional or spiritual in nature, right? There's a lot to say about that. Yeah. Another question. And I hope I have answered that. So masculine, like healing our masculine wounds, healing our father wound, yo, especially as the spiritually gifted. It's so important. Like your mother wound, your father wound. This is why I said, you know, let's remember we're humans. We have mothers, we have fathers. So we have mother wounds, we have father wounds, we have inner child wounds. My God. So we need to heal, guys. Yeah? Yes. Okay, another question. I have often given my healing gifts away for free because I want people to feel better and balanced. Can you advise on how to calculate what to charge for our healing questions? I mean, for our healing services. Okay. The questions was because I saw Akwa's comment of I've answered her questions. I'm so glad, right? Okay, so let's address this last question, and then I think we will be wrapping up our session, right? So I've often given my healing gifts away for free because I want people to feel better and balanced, right? So earlier we spoke about the need for us to do like inner reconciliation work and inner healing work around our own perceived value of our healing gifts, of spiritual gifts, and of healing work, right? So once we come to that understanding of just how valuable, and by valuable, I mean in terms of like the potential impact of this work, as somebody who's spiritually gifted, you literally have the gift to change the world, to hold space for people such that our world, like 2, 5, 10 years from now, is not where it is. Like your work is so much of value, right? And so we begin to come to that understanding, to embodying that awareness by doing the inner healing work, right? And also, what we can also do, like once you have like your packages, like it could be like a once-off healing session or a program, right? What I found to be of so much value. My own like money healer has held space for me to do this, right? So what is like so important is for us to get clear on our own So it's essentially getting clear on the value that we would assign our own work, right? Like it's really a step-by-step process of looking at, if it's a once-off session, you look at exactly what you're offering in that session, right? And you as an individual, I'll say, okay, do me knowing this work, because you're the expert here, right? As the expert of this work, what is the monetary value you would assign this work, knowing the impact that it's going to have on your client, right? And like working with your own higher self, working with your own guides, you can arrive at a value, right, for those services, right? And you know, from our session yesterday with Nurafan, we spoke a lot around how we need to heal our own like inner wounding around money. And additional to that, we need to heal our own inner wounding around our perception, around the value and worth of our work, right? Yes. So that one of how to cultivate what to charge, how to calculate what to charge, it can be a step-by-step process of just you know, applying all of yourself, spiritually, intellectually, mentally. How do I believe this session? How much do I believe this session is worth, given what I know? Like, or if you haven't worked with clients yet, you can work with the potential, knowing what I know it'll potentially do for my clients. Yeah, it is usually a truckloads, right? And then in pricing that work, you can also working with your guides, you know, your crested guides, you can begin at an amount that kind of like feels aligned for now. You charge that, but with the awareness of the value of that work. Last question, I believe, right? Yes, there was a question around chakra healing yesterday. I'm curious about womb healing work in relation to chakra healing, particularly the root and sacral chakra. How are the two connected, and what is the value of integrating this healing, right? Yeah, only a pleasure, Ayana. Yeah. So my specialty is around like the sacral chakra, right? I'll speak briefly on that. Joy, how much time do I have? Okay, let's say 3 minutes, quarter to, we're out of here, right? Yeah, so the sacral chakra has to do with like matters of pleasure, of intimacy, being new earth leaders, building new earth businesses. How do we incorporate pleasure into how we do our work, right? How do we allow ourselves to feel joy, to feel fulfillment in how we do our work, right? Intimacy, how do you arrive at a place where you are deeply intimate with your work? Deeply intimate can be deeply, allow yourself to be seen by your clients, allow yourself to be seen in your work, right? It has to do with matters of sensuality, right? Being connected with your body, being connected with your womb, right? Again, you know, what we spoke about earlier of resurrecting the feminine, right? Of working with your inner cycles, of working with your inner rhythms, of your inner patterns, bringing all of that into your work, right? The beautiful thing about this is realizing that you get to bring all of yourself into this, okay? Like that's the beauty of this, right? The root chakra has to do with your own sense and level of safety and belonging in the world, right? Are you feeling safe to step out as a medicine woman? Right? Does when you step out as a medicine woman, does it ever trigger that wounding around you not belonging, you not fitting in the world, right? It definitely does speak to how you're able to hold your mission and offer your medicine in the world, right? So we need to do inner healing work, at, like especially the root chakra, right? Because there we're also holding the woundings of our ancestors, right? Around lack of safety, our ancestors had to literally survive. And yesterday we started with the mantra of I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, right? So in this lifetime, in this generation, we get to feel safe enough to actually thrive in being who we are and being in service in the world, in the ways that we have been spiritually gifted to do so, right? Yes. Sacral chakra also has to do with your emotions, right? There's a lot of inner healing work that we need to do, especially as genetic path cutters, relating to our emotional body. All right. Joy and I usually laugh about it's probably the most intense, level of our beings to heal, because a lot of us, and this has to do with a lot of our womb pain and womb issues, unprocessed emotions, right? Our current society doesn't have space. It doesn't even have safe space for us to process to feel, to express, to fully process our emotions, right? And a lot of those, they move out of our body as physical pain, as womb pain, right? So as a woman, really, all women, we need to be doing some work around our wombs as new earth leaders, as genetic path cutters, medicine women, oracles who are birthing spiritual businesses, birthing new earth businesses. We need to be healing our wombs, right? Such that whatever it is that we birth, whatever it is that we create and put out into the world is free from our own inner wounding, from our own trauma, right? Yes. Ooh, I need this chat. I haven't been reading your messages. So, yeah, okay. It's been such an honor. I wish, I wanted to see all of you, as we're here. So for more of my work, I am social media, I'm most active on Instagram. My handle is @Tumelo Moreri, right? I have a website, tumelomoreri.com, and I also have a podcast, the Tumelo Moreri podcast. If in any way, this has moved you, and you're feeling called to do inner healing work, I have once-off healing immersions, and I also have a 4 month, a 16-week private healing program, that you can sign up for and do some inner healing work with me. It's been such a joy. I wish we had, all the time in the world to get through it. Okay. Bye.